Moving on to Brexit, the Cabinet this morning discussing no deal, and coincidentally, or not coincidentally, rather, Guy Verhofstadt, the member of the European Parliament, on their steering group, he has put out a tweet saying those like Jeremy Hunt who glorify a no-deal Brexit are totally irresponsible. It's not the job of politicians to make the people they lead poorer, to remove opportunities, rights, and make lives more uncertain. There is no such thing as a managed no deal.
Yeah, that's not political, is it, really? I mean, really, well, Mr. Verhofstadt, exactly right. Mr. Verhofstadt is playing political games. He knows that. The truth is, the EU, I think on Wednesday, are due to make the announcement about the preparations they're making. Should the discussions and negotiations not come to anything, they're now already getting ready and planning for what they need to do to make sure that there is minimum disturbance at places like borders, airlines. In fact, it's already the case that the EU signed the transit agreement, which means that no extra checks at the borders. It also means that the EU has signed up the landing rights and also the issues around health and safety issues to do with aircraft. So those things are already getting laid.
But they are doing it as damage limitation. They are, no, but they're not doing it because they think in the circumstance it might be a good option to have a no-deal Brexit. But as I understand it, some of the Brexiteers I've been talking to are saying there's nothing to be afraid of from a no-deal.
Well, no, I think there's a difference between there's nothing to be afraid of to what would you prefer. I would obviously prefer to have a negotiated arrangement where we have a period in which we move towards a free trade deal. That was on the table originally from Monsieur Barnier when I sat down with him about 5 weeks ago. He reiterated that plan. He would much rather treat us as a third country with a good free trade deal. Let's get on with it. The problem sits still in the heart of this agreement that they're trying to make, which is this backstop, which creates a real nightmare. But I'm saying, but also the EU is being unbending, and we're being unbending over it because we should never have signed up to it in December, and that's where the great mistake was. We should have never allowed them to take away our negotiating position by agreeing to sign up to this and also the money. So these things are there. Sometimes you need to go right to the wire with the EU. They need to kind of face up to the fact that they also don't want us to leave without an arrangement. It's not in their interest as much as it really would be in ours.
They see what Britain is planning as an act of self-harm.
Well, I think they're actually reacting in worry now because the truth is you cannot have a plan A if you don't have a plan B, because negotiation always requires that the other side believe that you will do something if this fails.
But they do have a plan
B. And they don't believe that. They haven't believed that.
They've got a customs union.
I'm talking about the negotiations, that's another word. So what they need to understand is that the UK has a plan to leave should they not agree a deal, and then there are other aspects you need to negotiate and discuss around that. But the main point is, as long as they think you only have one plan, which is to try and get as good as you can in a negotiation, then the answer is they're not going to treat you carefully. And I have some intelligence on that, some really interesting information coming out of the German Chancellery in which they have kind of war-gamed this, and they've come to the conclusion that the UK is almost certain, they think, to sign the agreement because they didn't think they were serious about having any plans for leaving without a deal. Now, in the last week, they've begun to change their position on this, and they begin to realise this may well be an option. That's why Guy Verhofstadt is making such a fuss about it, because he didn't believe it before.
But it is all damage limitation even on our side, isn't it? So it is an act of self-harm.
Well, I don't believe it's an act of self-harm. Actually, the UK will manage and do very well, whatever the circumstances are, because I was reading the other day, the German chief economist at Deutsche Bank said, I'm not at all worried about the UK, whatever the arrangement, because they're the most flexible country on the world.
That was medium term, though, wasn't
it? He's talking about right the way through. He said, as long as you get over the disturbances at the beginning and you have sense between both sides, he said, I'm more worried about the EU, that is heading into a very difficult period with very high regulation and very high unemployment around the continent of Europe.
So far, we are losing jobs in this country because of Brexit, aren't we?
I don't believe that's the case. We have record number in employment. Yes. We have the record low unemployment. If you compare that to France or Italy, it's actually very high over
We
there.
also have companies announcing that they're closing down, that those jobs aren't going to be
Well, that's what we hear, but I think most of the companies, let's take
take
Jaguar Land Rover, it's a little bit nuanced here, although they tack on Brexit at the back end. Actually, it's true that they made some very bad decisions about what the future of cars was. They didn't go for electric, they heavily banked on diesel and didn't produce much petrol. So, they accept that some management decisions weren't great. They may well say that the risks over Brexit make it a bit tougher. But the truth is, at the end of the day, all companies, if they're well managed, will have plans to get through all
And
this.
the housing market in the prosperous parts of the UK, such as London, they're tanking as well.
Do you know what? I'm a little divided on this. As a London MP, I have to say, when prices, houses don't rocket up, I think that's got to be better for those at the bottom end of the market.
When they fall 30%.
When they do. Well, I have to tell you that at the end of it all, I don't believe that these things are forever. House prices go up, house prices come down. What we've actually seen is a prolonged period, both of growth and, of course, of price rises in housing. So, in a sense, all of these things are, in the way, short-term. What we have to exercise is the UK, as the fifth largest economy in the world, will do well whatever the circumstances, but obviously we'd like to have the EU face up to the fact that we can get a good agreement, providing they're prepared to get rid of their backstop.
Quite rough words. You said, damn well step up to the plate. I mean, you know, I don't know how to put this, but I mean, you know, who are you, a Tory Brexiteer, to threaten a union of 27?
I'm not threatening them at all. I'm simply saying it's in their interest to make sure they're sensible and reasonable about this process, and being unreasonable. And this is, I have to tell you, when Mr. Verhofstadt comes out and makes comments like that, I know that he's actually worried rather than actually being on top. He crows when he's on top. He's not crowing today.
OK, Iain Duncan Smith, thank you very much indeed.